All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome on this very special stream. It's quite interesting time to be streaming because it's GenCon time. Let me just check my audio. All right. Should be fine now. I just hear some static. Okay, so that's the Mist model for this stream. This is Mist Compact, and this is the very special model that you get if you spend above $100 during the GenCon sale, and I still heal myself. Oops. Let me just see if we can fix that. Okay, that should be. Now it's fixed. No, it's not yet. Hopefully we'll get it down because it's odd to be hearing myself. And there's the link. Amazing. And we're almost good to go. Okay, now I can't hear myself anymore. Amazing. Hope you guys can hear me. Just let me know in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. I wouldn't like to be just talking to myself. I want to interact with you guys and show you how I paint this lovely lady. So that's the lady that will be painted today. I thought that I need some dynamic base for her. That's why she has this ruined wooden planks that look like she just landed on them or she just jumped on them. All right, thank you, Tomek. Amazing. So that's the lovely lady, and I want to do some non-metallic metal work on her today, just to do something slightly different than what I typically do. And I'll start with an overbrush because that's what I want to do. I want to get a good sense of how the details land on this miniature, and that will also help me with more detailed work on highlights and shades. So for that, I will use just almost pure white, an off-white color. It's movie night with your wife, so we'll be looking. Enjoy the Avengers, man. Good show to be chilling. Good movie to be chilling to, and definitely don't feel bad about spending quality time with the family. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, hi, under construction paints. Good to see you here as well. And this miniature was pre-shaded. That means that I first sprayed black on it from the just all over it, and then from the top I sprayed white. That's why you can see that the parts of her armor from the bottom are slightly darker, and they are darker because that will help me with just making sure that the details, that the shadows are darker and they are distributed properly over the miniature. So now those light overbrushing just gives me a better sense of those highlights that I want to place. Just a small thing, but since I will be working from bright base coat and then shading it with contrast paints and glazes and whatnot, it just helps me. It's an entirely optional step that you can take in the process, but I like to do it, just find it helpful. Speed paint for GenCon. Wow, that sounds exciting. And you know what I'm most excited about for each GenCon is the little snippets we see for next releases. Like I believe that well, a couple of years ago we saw some of those iconic models without any explanation of what they were, who do they represent, whether those are actual Malifu characters, whether they will be playable, whether those are just for collectors. And it's kind of smart not to show everything, not to reveal everything. Because it keeps people interested, it keeps people involved, and we're just eager to get more and more insights into what's going to happen, and that's something that I definitely hope that people who come to visit the booth will be taking a lot of pictures and sharing them with the community, because they are typically generous. And I'm just opening on my laptop a picture for reference to have of the lovely lady. And I'll start with giving base coat to the armor. Let me just mix the paintball. And in the meanwhile, while I'm beginning to work, I can show you guys something that I've been up to. This has been on my work place for a couple of days now. So the hanging copper Nephilim, and these are also available at GenCon. So if you follow the link that Kim has shared at the beginning of the stream, you can get yours as well. They come in a separate box. With what are they with? They are with the copper Nephilim, I believe. They are with not with Will, not. I think they are just a separate box. No, they come with Atharak, I believe. No, or are they part of the actual box? No, they are part of the core crew. Yeah, I just assembled them quickly. So that's one miniature. Then there is the other one. They aren't really finished yet. They're just pre-high. I just need to put some more highlights, increase the shadows on them. But those are amazing miniatures. And that's the Atharak. And that's just a hint of what I will be painting on my stream next week. Because next week I will be painting Castor, the Awakened model, the Awakened version. So the pre-workout version. So I'll now apply Glyph Charger Gray. Maybe I'll thin it down with water very slightly, just making sure that it has slightly less immediate impact on the surface. And the way I test it, I just put it on the piece of paper, and if I like it, then I continue with it. So now I'll just open the tab where I have the miniature, and essentially what I'm doing now is I'm just putting it on all the metallic elements, and it already looks like a kind of simplistic non-metallic metal, because it's gray, it's kind of bluish gray, and when you work with non-metallic metal, it's always nice to add a touch of different color, like hint of green, hint of blue. Actually, I think it goes better painted straight from the pot. It just makes the metal look more interesting. Once I've base coated it, I will base coat the planks on the base so that I have a solid frame of the miniature, and good idea to what to do with the next steps. And this miniature won't be for me. It won't be for anyone else that I know, or maybe I know that person, because the new owner of this miniature will be randomly chosen among, I believe, everyone who shared the post on Instagram. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case here. So if you haven't done it, and if it's still possible, then I think we can share the link to the post, if it still makes sense to share it at this point to increase your chances. And I'm wearing my formal Word t-shirt. Not sure if you can see it. Just remove my camera slightly. Yeah, so Hours t-shirt, which I got a few GenCons away. A few GenCons back, I think like 3-4 years ago. And I've been wearing it for special occasions like tournaments or some special streams. Actually, I must have gotten it like 4 or 5 years ago, quite a while ago. There have been just so many GenCons, and each time they are exciting. So the champ pack, I think it will be all metallic, but I will add some rust effects on it, which will be tricky because adding rust on non-metallic metal is a bit different because you need to be consistent with this more cartoonish approach to painting. Whereas with regular metallic paints, you just go with methods that you are well familiar with. Yeah, that's the link. That's the link to be shared. You can find all the details about how to boost your chances of winning this actual miniature that I'm painting. And you know what I will do is I want to make it personalized. So if I know the name of the winner, I will just add a slight note because it's magnetized. And I'll add a note here to the lucky winner with my signature, the date of painting, just to make it more memorable and enjoyable. And I think those are also metallic pieces. So just kind of framing. I call this stage framing. That's the term I use. Just framing the details, framing the mm, essentially framing what will be happening. It's like starting with a frame to the model and then going from outside in to the details. So you know the funny thing about Glyph Charger Grey is that it kind of already looks like pseudo non-metallic metal. If I just pause for a second on the backpack, if it was pre-shaded, then you should be able to see it in a second. It already looks pretty decent. It already looks like some kind of pseudo non-metallic metal. Not too bad. I mean, if I wanted to just have a very quick paint job to be ready with the miniature, I could stop at this point. But I have way more time to go. And those are some tiny holes in here that I will be filling in with darker shade, of course. So that's just the first phase. And now the base. So for the base, I will start with gray. I will just make sure that all the colors, that the sand elements on the base are base coated with basilicanum gray. It's another of the contrast paints that I like very much. It's solid gray color, matte, and can be nicely tweaked with touch of green, yellow, brown, depending on what I have in mind. So I want to first apply it, then I will apply some strong brown, and then I will uh, apply highlights. But to begin with, I want to get a solid base coat, base color before I proceed with the next steps. And those following the streams, I was on my vacation over past 2 weeks. I took miniatures with me because I just, it's not like I need a break from painting. I actually took all the returned models and assembled them in the evening after riding a bike, walking along the seaside, and just having some quality time away from all the noise that distorts the reality when you are in the city and working. So that, and the evenings were just listening to actually for podcasts, assembling miniatures, which is perfect recipe for quality rest for me. So that's what I did on my holidays, and I also did a lot of riding a bike, walking, some sightseeing. So good time, 2 weeks allowed me to recharge batteries considerably, even though Polish seaside, because that's where I went. I mean, the weather isn't perfect, let's face it. It's changeable, it's unpredictable, but it's not bad. Now I will apply snakebite leather. Whoops, sorry for making a mess. Let me just give it a good shake. Okay, I messed up something with the focus on the camera. Let's hope we can get it back. But in the meanwhile, we do not need that much focus at this point because I'm not doing highly detailed work, just essentially applying core colors to the base now. So I'll be putting now snakebite leather, which is a slightly yellowish shade of brown. Just want to be careful around the boots, not to kind of contaminate them with brown. I'll be adding some weathering onto them, but that will come later. At this point, I just want to... Now we get the focus back, thank you. You know, it seems like when you pop in, check in on the stream and see the progress, then pop in again, or pop in later to check the recorded version on YouTube. Seems like it's all working by itself, but we have our amazing helper. Kim is always there to watch over any technical hiccups that can happen along the way, any Waldo's running wild. And speaking of Waldo, those keychains are amazing. It's funny that from this year's GenCon, that's actually the thing that I like the most, and probably the only thing that I will be getting this year because I already have all the miniatures I wanted. I have the whole returned keyword already, so I don't have. There isn't really anything from the Neverborn side of things that I would be ordering, so I'm still thinking about those awesome keychains. I just don't know if they will be available for general release. Hard to tell at this point. I have no knowledge of that. But they aren't really that expensive, $10. So maybe I will just chip in with someone from my local meta who will be making a GenCon order and add these guys to the order and just put them on my work backpack. All right, so those are the planks which are just base coated, because that's kind of, that was, the white base was just not helping. I just wanted to make sure that I get it out of the way and then focus on the miniature itself. And now as for the miniature, so the base coat for the metallic parts is locked in. I'll just go over the places where I see still some white dots showing through. And now the skin tone. So for the skin tone, I will be using, to begin with, Fire Slayer Flesh. And I'll just apply it directly. I've used this color on painting gypsum the world, and it worked out quite well for the dark skin tone. But again, this is just the base coat for the skin. I will be spending more time on that. And now it's hard to tell actually which part of it is still part of her costume and where the skin should be painted. So I will take an educated guess that her neck is visible. Although hard to tell looking at the artwork. I think it might still be part of her skin showing through here. That's what I will assume. This is the skin. And that's one of the neat things about contrast paints, is that if you don't apply them heavily, you can use them to kind of put volumes to the shades, because you can just use the same color and go over exactly the same area again and keep the colors darker where you want them darker. I'm not too worried about painting over other elements because that will be highlighted again very soon. Okay, so that's the only visible part of the skin that I can see. And now, since she's an outcast lady, and I thought while looking at the miniature that I will do a bright yellow coloring on her. But for yellow to work, I will begin with something that might seem counterintuitive, but that will all come together in the end. Trust me. Trust me, it's part of the process. Even though it seems counterintuitive. I'm using Volupus pink. It's a pink contrast paint. And why do I use pink contrast paint? Because that will create and transition into some nice shades once I apply yellow. All right, now the same on the chest area. And going with the pink just over the recessed areas where I know that the color will be the darkest. So that's just, again, making sure that the shades are where I want them to be. Okay, that's pretty much it. So pink to begin with. Now I'll let it dry. And while it dries, I will already go ahead and apply the black color, green black, as base coat to the hair. So it seems like I'm going super fast and she will be painted in a matter of minutes, but it's not the case. It will still take me a while, because then it will be the refining stage, the careful reapplication of colors, the stage where I decide which parts stay darker, which receive more highlights. But generally my idea is also to show you guys that you can get a solid looking paint job on an amazingly detailed miniature in an hour and just not feel bad about putting it on the table, because we have such an amazing range of hobby tools available to us and a range of paints which just make the whole process faster and easier and more beginner friendly. then if you're concerned that your miniatures will look bad, you shouldn't be, because we have the tools to move directly to the feel good stage. Okay, so looks more gray than black now, but it's fine. I'm not too concerned about it at this point. So already have some solid colors going. Now I'll use Gore Granta Fur for all the leather straps. I'll just switch to a slightly smaller brush and use Gore Granta Fur now. Alrighty, and now let's look where those leather straps actually are. Here I see them. They're on her arm. Right, now looking back, thinking about past GenCons, I think that the most memorable for me was like 5 years ago, I believe, where some miniatures that I've been using so many times in games were released. Among them, Cyclops and Grootslang, which are some of the most impressive miniatures from the Neverborn faction that I still own. And also, a few years ago, some of the miniatures that I painted for Word actually were showcased in the glass cabinet during the con, which also made me feel extremely happy to see pictures of miniatures painted by me. And also, each time there is a new book, new edition, new masters, it's always exciting. Like last year, Damien Ravencroft was released, and I think that there was even a guy who actually bought the miniatures during Gen Con and assembled and had a quick paint job on them and actually played in a tournament with them, which is quite impressive. Now those are the leather straps, more leather straps on her arms. Well, she has a heavy jetpack, so she needs good support. And I've remarked on a number of occasions that leather straps are a big part of the Malifaux aesthetics, especially for all those miniatures representing humans. I think it maybe goes in line with the resources and technology that was available at that time. So the time, which is more or less the Victorian, the Victorian times in England. Okay, there is another leather strap, and I've left some brown on her armor, but that's on her power fist or whatever it is. It's not an issue at this point. It can still be fixed. Well, that hair that attached itself to the bristle of the brush is definitely not mine. I have at least 3 or 4 culprits whom I could point a finger at my home, either my wife or one of my daughters, or even my cat, not me. Alright, so I think that those are the leather straps, and those actually, I believe that those are also leather, the elements that hold the jetpack in place. It's like leather satchel for them. Fortunately, I used very light gray, so there is nothing problematic if I apply brown on top of it. So I'm just, again, going through all the major areas and base coating them, because that, once I've done it, I see with clarity of how the colors are distributed on the miniature, and then it's easier for me to decide which areas need more adjustment, more fine-tuning, and which are closer to calling them ready. At least that's the way I've been painting in the past couple of years. Just some pre-shaded core areas defined, and then taking it from there. And actually, now that I look at the artwork, it doesn't have all the cables, which doesn't help because I will need to come up with an idea of which colors I can use to paint them. I think I'll just go with something dark. But now let's go to the yellow phase. And for yellow, we'll use Nasdaq yellow, so a dark, dark yellow. Hola, señor Diablo. Hola, buenas tardes, buenos días. And glad you popped in. Now, this yellow at that point, and at this point in time, will look somewhat similar to what I have on the base. But again, it's not a problem because the base is just, it's just a core color that will be tweaked further with some green, maybe with some brown. We'll see. Now I'm applying this Nasdaq yellow on top of the sections which were base coated with pink, and that just creates some nice transition already. It automatically generates those nicely shaded areas where I want them to be shaded. That's because yellow is pretty much on the opposite spectrum of, on the color wheel, on the opposite side of purple, and they work super well together. And if you see now, when I apply this yellow contrast over pinkish base coat, it just creates those shades quite easily. Now I need to paint around this section of cable. Switching to a slightly smaller brush with a finer tip. Yeah, we'll definitely be painting it inside out in the next stage because it's just too easy to accidentally get some color on areas surrounding the yellow parts if I don't move extremely cautiously. Okay, again, some yellow got on the gray, which isn't too bad because I can still fix a lot of it. All right, so the yellow is almost ready. There are just some small thin areas where I can reapply the yellow, and the yellow will be much brighter. So it's just the base coat and the cables. Now this is the tricky part. All right, that's, it's just, thank you, but I would say that this is just the beginning on the base. It's essentially just white base coat with snakebite leather applied on top of it, and it still lacks definite proper definition. So I'll be putting some edge highlights on it. Maybe I will even be going with brush on every single plank to make sure that it looks better. And also there are some nails here, so they will need to be, well, gray or silver. Actually, since I'm painting non-metallic metal on the metallic elements on the miniature, then I will also be consistent and stick to non-metallic metal on the base as well. But for now, I think I will still apply a touch-up of yellow in one area before I proceed. And now those cables. Now that's a conundrum. And I need to consider how to apply them. I'll just take a quick look at the miniature, at the artwork. Just to see how I can approach it, because I have different ideas for it and I need to settle on at least one definite one. I think I'll just, yeah, I mean, those snakebite leather, you can use gore granta fur, which also works quite well on elements that you want to look like they resemble wood. There are options for sure. And now let's do the cables. I think that green might be the way to go. You know what? I will just put green as base coat and take it from there. Or I just keep it gray. Or something else. You know what I'll do? I'll put athematic blue because it's a kind of neutral color. It's not that heavy. And I can always decide if I want to keep it bright or go slightly darker. But I actually mixed it with a little bit of green, and I think it's not bad. I think green will make sense. But for now, I just want it base coated out of the way and then paint it as probably one of the last elements, since I want to be painting now inside out. So the external details, so details that kind of frame the miniature, will be painted last. Now I will pause for a second. I mean, I'm not pausing the stream, but I just want to pause and kind of reflect on what I've done so far. Hey there, second set of recommendations. Thing like that. That's probably my most used contrast paint. Use it literally everywhere. Oh yeah, it's a versatile paint for sure. Now guys, have a look. This is what I've been able to accomplish in 40 minutes. So really, really short time. And I mean, I'm no magician. I'm an experienced painter. There are thousands of painters who are way better than me. But the stage to which I got in those 40 minutes, I think we can all agree that this is a reasonably nicely painted miniature that no one would feel bad putting on the gaming table. Okay, let me just make sure that I have it in a good position. All right, maybe here now. Okay, there she is. So take a look, guys. This is just after 40 minutes. Some pre-shading work, some zenithal highlighting, and we already have, I just need to align better with the Twitch screen, because the screen which I see live doesn't reflect exactly what I see in the Twitch screen. So let me just, all right, there we are. I think it's as good as it gets. So again, pausing it for a second to show you guys what I was able to do in 40 minutes. And I would argue that anyone, even a completely inexperienced person, can get to this stage of a miniature just looking good, looking very good in less than an hour. And you see that the nice thing, the tricks that I employed here. So first of all, the zenithal highlighting. So what I mean by zenithal highlighting is priming the miniature pure black, then spraying white at an angle from the top, so as not to cover it entirely with white, but leave a kind of, make it look like a kind of statue. Yeah, I guess that's the idea of zenithal highlighting, where you see some elements that are, the details really come off nicely then. And this allows it, as you can see, those elements which I just base coated, so her mask, the upper part of her, what is it, of her mechanical fists are much brighter, and the ones at the bottom look already appreciated, and look, the pre-shading worked out super well because they are just darker. And again, the trick I did with pink on the part of her, on the of the clothes, it also resulted in some sections being significantly darker, even at this early stage, which looked like there has been some meticulous highlighting process going on, but there wasn't any process. It was just a few quick steps to get to that point. So yeah, I'm not calling it done by not yet. There's still plenty to go, but I wanted just to take a moment to pause and just reflect on how you can quickly and easily get a really solid effect. And you know, one of my ideas, of one of my key messages that I want to reinforce, that I want to convey in my painting stream, is that painting miniatures is really for everyone. If it's just an end, if it's just an end towards a goal of having a painted miniature on the table, then you don't need to suffer for it. You can just use shortcuts, use hobby hacks, painting tricks, just to get you faster to putting the painted miniature on the table. So now, what I will do for the cleanup stage, as I've said a few times while base coating the elements, I've added some of the colors which I didn't want on her power fists. So I'll just use now pure white, thin it down slightly, and just apply it on the areas which are covered with different color than gray. So that will allow me to kind of force some highlights already in, but also prepare it for another glaze of which one was it? It was Griff Charger Gray. Oh, and I still need to paint, at least base coat those wires around her face. Again, here the edge. So as you can see, it's not really, doesn't take a great effort to get a solid looking miniature ready for action. And you know, the thing that helps the most is the actual quality of the model, because if the details, well, you need to assemble it. That's one thing that comes also with territory. You just need to assemble a few word miniatures to feel entirely comfortable doing so. But once you've done it a few times, it becomes kind of natural. And once you see it assembled, pre-shaded, the details, they just stand out so much and so well, and it just becomes easy to work with. And actually the headband here, I think I will do it red or maybe purple. Purple would be pretty neat. I can do it purple. So again, base coat it with white. So you know the ease of in which you operate the brush, the ease with which you apply color to the details, it just comes with practice, 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 practice. I'm just also base coating now the nails on the base. All right, now one more nail here. Just want to make sure I base coat all of them. Well, some white landed on the plank where I don't want it, so I can just easily get it out of the way real quick. Are those all the nails? I think so. I think I got them all covered, so I can just make sure that they are evenly covered from all angles. Right. So they look they look bad at this point. But that's fine. They don't have to look ready. And what I'll do now is those pipes or wires or whatever it is around her face. I think the teal color might be the way to go. You know, it's whenever I'm in doubt which color to go with, I just put light color because then I can quickly fix it. I can put a different color in there or just keep at it. So light color leaves me with options. And I still have a piece of neck that I need to paint here. So now I'll be moving to skin. And to begin with, I will use maybe not Gallimon Flesh, maybe I'll use the darker shade, which I have somewhere here. Let me just find it. Where is my dwarf color? This is what happens when you have too many paints on your paint desk. It was here a moment ago. But now it's... No, I have it right in front of me. Fire Slayer Flesh. So what I'm doing now is I'm applying it straight from the pot, twirling the tip of the brush to get a fine tip. And I will just apply it over the again over the skin area, but this time I will use the exact same color, but I will try to already guide the brush towards those more recessed areas. And I'll be honest with you guys, when I first saw that miniature, I thought it's cool, but I wasn't blown away by it. Now, when I've just base coated it and when I have a good idea of what the level of detail is and how it all comes together, I love it. But I still am going to give it away. No worries. That's not changing. It's going to a lucky winner. Okay, so there she is. Again, base coated. Base coated and ready for further tweaks. And I will go with more with Fire Slayer Flash. Why it's so difficult to pronounce Fire Slayer? Because it's Fear Slayer. I don't know how it's some kind of archaic spelling. And what I'm doing now on my palette, I'm applying it and using some off-white, and I will use off-white mixed with this base color and start highlighting it, because I've already decided where the shaded areas are, where the darkest elements should be. So it's time to put some highlights in. Actually, her cheekbones are partially visible, so I'm just using a fine tip of the brush to very lightly define them. Again, those are acrylic paints, so any happy little mistakes that I make along the way can be easily corrected. How much yellow is in so much wood? Yep. Generally, yellow is it's a nice color to work with. I painted this Rotten Harvest Pandora crew with yellow as a dominant color, and it just came together so nicely with some purple details there as well. So yeah, I do like me some yellow for sure. And again, the pre-shading part means that the skin parts, which are below the neck level, and to be frank, they are hard to get to once the miniature has been assembled fully, they do not need, and they shouldn't really receive as much highlights as the forehead, for example. Now let's do the eyes. Let's be bold and do the eyes next. The most challenging part, the most demanding and difficult. Because why not? So first let's get some white on the very small brush. I'm using Winsor & Newton 000 for that. And it's not really the size of the brush, the smaller the better. It's not the rule. The finer the tip that holds steady amount of paint properly, the better. Deep breath now, and sniper work. Will I get it right the first time, or will I need to go over it again? I think I'm getting it right. And again, my advice for painting the eyes is something that I've said before. Your hands will be shaking, and the shaking will be reduced with experience. But if you feel like you want to add some extra stability to shaking hands, first of all, make sure that your hands touch one another. That will naturally cause them to shake less. And when you approach that fine detail that you want to paint, start already moving your brush. And that will put your mind into focus, put your hands into some steady motion, repeated motion, ideally. And that will allow you to just be more focused and more accurate with application of colors. Now I look from different perspective, make sure that the pupils, the size of both pupils is similar, and if not, then reapply the whites. And now time for the black. So this is the real sniping work, the real challenging part. And I use black contrast paint because it's slightly thinner than black paint. And the problem thing with fine tip of the brush is that the paint dries super fast on it. Right, one eye doesn't look bad. Let's try to make the other one look healthy and happy and angry, because she is one angry lady. So my advice for if you feel very uncomfortable painting the eyes, if you feel like it's too much of a challenge, then practice. But generally, if you don't feel comfortable, don't paint them. Just use a dark wash, put it into the eye sockets, and that will look fine. It won't look bad. Now the right eye is proving a bit of challenge. That's because I'm right-handed. And I struggle to find a good spot for it, but I got it. And also one more thing worth noting is that whenever I paint the eyes, I try to focus on the upper section of the pupil and then put some darker shade below the eye to kind of frame it better. That's it for the eyes. All right. Now let's focus on the armor, maybe. There's still plenty of time, but again, let me showcase what I have. And time to reapply the Glyph Charger Gray. And again, this is process. So before I maybe do it, I will just go back with white and also just put white on those edge highlights. So prepare it for another application of contrast paint by firmly highlighting the edges. That will allow us to create nice transition. And we've already seen, I believe, 2 streams with this Miss Miniature painted. I'm unfortunately missed them because I was on holidays and my access to the internet was very, very limited at best. There was very poor network coverage, which was actually a blessing because that's, in the end, that's something that really allowed me to disconnect and just rest and enjoy time with near and dear ones. But I believe we've already seen Doug, also known as Goose Ladder on the forums, and Haunted paint their versions of misconduct miniatures. I still think we've yet to see Eleanor paint the miniature, so that's coming very soon, I think. And again, I'm just focusing on those highlight areas which are raised, which need some extra highlights. Now just applying some white to those raised areas, a little bit more of white. And now it's ready for another layer of Glyph Charger Gray. So here we are. As you can see, those raised areas are a bit more distinctly visible. Now for that, I will just go with medium-sized brush and use again Glyph Charger Gray, which is one of my favorite contrast colors. I really like because it's something between blue and gray. And I will just apply it over the areas which are kind of metallic again. And then I'll start adding volume to that with highlights by mixing the actual contrast paint with white, because what it will do, it will first of all allow me to keep thin consistency, which is ideal for application of highlights. And secondly, will allow me to keep the highlights consistent with what's already on the miniature. So just making sure that I don't go too heavy. Don't want to overdo it. The same on the jetpack. And I will also, hey there, defective eyes. Thank you for dropping by. And that's what I'm glad you saying that. Really appreciate your comment. But the thing that I've been trying to really stress more than anything is that it's easy. It's really easy. It's nothing out of the ordinary to get the miniature looking good. And I'm more than happy to share any kind of hobby tricks, shortcuts, not so secret recipes for making it happen and helping anyone who doesn't feel comfortable with painting bridge that gap and gain more self-confidence and just get on with it. This will look, my idea is for it to look much better when I start applying those, because I want it to look super vivid, super bright. That's why the pants will receive some proper highlighting treatment. Now I just want to make sure that the paint doesn't pool in any places, and I can already start putting in some highlights. So I will use Cliff Charger Gray mixed with white, pure white. Actually, dead white, not pure white. That's the name of the color, but you know what I mean. Just pure white, doesn't mix with any other colors, and then only lightly added to Cliff Charger Gray. Just small amount that allows me to keep the consistency super thin and under control. Yes, the control freak in me enjoys having more control of the process and just being able to work steadily on gradually moving the highlights. Because with non-metallic metal, the absolutely essential part is to be slow with highlights, not to go heavy on with them. You don't want to create too much contrast. You want the highlights to emerge slowly and steadily. So it's in this process, it can be a test of patience, because you need several highlights on small areas just to ensure that you gradually move towards pure white. So thin layers of paint, and numerous highlights, and that's the way to go. You just want to make sure that the paint dries up completely before you apply successive highlights, because you work with very thin layers. And what will happen if you don't allow it to dry properly is that you will just drag the highlights with brush strokes, which isn't optimal. So guys, any of you following the stream now or just dropping by or who've been here for a while, has anyone made their GenCon order yet? And if yes, then what did you get? I would be curious to know. As I said before, I haven't placed it yet because I just own all the stuff that I currently need from the newly released models. I have the whole returned keyword, so I'm not really interested in any specific miniatures that are available. So this year I won't be making a bigger order for myself. Maybe I will just join with other guys placing their order, and just to reduce the shipping costs and maybe get those sweet looking keychains with Walda, because they look fun. So again, slowly and steadily putting light highlights. And I know it doesn't really show immediately in the... I just need to change the position because you haven't ordered yet, but I have some Riva score box along with some drogs sitting in my cart at the moment. So Riva and Droger, is it already enough to push you over the $100 limit to get free Miss Miniature? Because that's the goal, right? You want to spend at least 100 bucks to make sure that you get access to those lovely free miniatures. To this lovely free miniature, this very specific one that I happen to be working on. Now those exhaust pipes of the jetpack. And again, I'm just working my way around the holes in them. Gradually moving towards brighter colors. Gradually but steadily. And Riva is definitely one of those. I mean, there isn't really a crew that I don't like from the aesthetic standpoint, but there are There are those which I like more, and Riva is definitely one of those that I like more. So this is some slow-paced work currently, but I'm approaching the middle of the stream and I don't need to really speed up much. I just want to make sure that the transitions between highlights are really smooth. They aren't too extreme. Just need to even it out a little bit. The top of the canisters on her jetpack are a bit tricky because it's more of a flat surface. That's why I'm going just to take my sweet time and really not rush through this phase, through this stage. I just want to enjoy it. That's what non-metallic metal is all about. And I don't use this technique all too often. I just generally tend to prefer true metallic metal work, so regular silver colors. But I thought that for this one I want to make an exception. I want to make something really special. And I went for non-metallic metal. And this is all about following all the raised areas carefully and steadily, making sure you just lightly touch up on them, and that transition has to happen slowly. Oh yeah, lampads are those annoying miniatures. Just when you see them on the table, you just have to accept that they are going to be there and they are going to annoy you, and there isn't really much you can do about that unless you have a way of pinging them to death with 1,000 paper cuts. But that's not even then it's not a guarantee that because they can still find a way to survive, heal. Though I heard that those miniatures are kind of a nightmare to put together because they are the design is so ambitious that it's just a true effort to put them together properly. Hello, hello. I mean, not that I'm wrong, it's just the middle of the stream. So, nothing wrong with joining midway through. I've already put some solid base coats on most of the on all the elements really on this miniature, and I'm just working my way through highlights. And I think that this is the second Mace model coming from the Outcast faction. The first one with being an alternative for Johan or Johanna. Maybe even there was another one. No, Johanna was, I think, this model. Oh yeah, they are an interesting build for sure. Lots of elements to put together and easy to get it wrong, but not impossible because people use them, and I've seen at least several, at least like, well, I've seen a couple of different versions from different people, so people have put them together and survived. It's not like Jan Lo's beard. Now this is the meticulous work, just gradually working my way up with the highlights and just making sure that now that I have the paint diluted properly, the highlights land where I want them and the shaded areas remain a little bit darker. Yeah, they look pretty amazing in green flames, that's very true. So I'm still I haven't gone to pure white stage. It's still white mixed with some gray, just to make this transition to pure white one step closer, but not here yet. Right, so some white got in the recessed area, but that can be quickly removed with damp brush. And so I'm almost halfway through the stream. And this is always the stage where I already start thinking about what do I do next? What do I paint on my next stream? And next time I will be painting Castore. Castore or Castore, I think it's the way to pronounce it. So the new Neverborn Master. I will be painting the Awakened version, so the pre-workout version, let's call it this way. Because I don't want to postpone painting the Fervent version. There is actually a tournament this Saturday, and I just have him base coated. Hopefully, I will find some time in the night tomorrow, maybe to get him painted for the tournament. Because I have a proxy model that I've used for the past couple of months, but since I have the original model, it just makes me eager to put the actual model on the table rather than a proxy, which is decent, looks okay, but it's not as good as the original model. Not by far. And while painting also with non-metallic metal, you need to look back every now and then just to make sure that the highlights are applied the way that the light would be hitting this miniature. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to paint him. I can show you guys because I have them assembled right next to my painting station. I just need to open it up. So this is one of the coolest models that has ever been released by Word. There's no question about it. The Marathon, the Totem, the best totem in game. No, I mean, arguably one, definitely the most interesting. Let's face it, how many other totems are unkillable? And as for Castora himself, those are the two versions. So the Awakened one is a little bit taller because he's standing upright, whereas the Fervent one is just crouched and doesn't really stretch full all the way. A bit blurry, but yeah, there they are. So this guy, I will enjoy painting him for you guys to see over my next painting stream next Tuesday next week. Oh, I think that they can be worse because those bones, those skeletons on them are quite, the on lamparts are quite tricky to assemble. So now I'm moving very lightly, and the thing about applying white is that I want it just on the very tip. So on the knuckles of those mechanical fists, just very lightly marking those edges, but not all going all the way. Because going all the way is one way of ruining the meticulously applied highlights that had already been put in place. And it's such a cool idea that the Word creative team had. I'm not sure if our Kim, our star, is the person who came up with this idea that each of the Word streamers paints the same miniature during the GenCon week. And you get different approaches to the same beautiful miniature, which happens to be released at that time of the year. And I'm not going super fine detail because I'm still going to give it one more glaze of Glyph Charger Gray, of considerably thinned down Glyph Charger Gray. And then I will get back with pure white and touch up the highlights again. So those nails also need a little bit of highlighting. because they are too gray, and just a tiny dot of white will go a long way towards making them visible much better. Those exhaust pipes also need some highlights. Sorry if I'm being quiet, but just I'm in this super focused mode. And I almost spilled a bucket of water. And speaking of returned, let me just quickly show you something that I feel very happy about. It's still a work in progress. It's not complete, but it's close to complete. And this is the hanging one. I mean, I made it hanging. My buddy suggested this, and I thought that this has to be done. Yeah, but that will be painted for the next stream. Maybe I will be able to showcase it to you guys then. Now, thin down. For thin down, I will actually use Express Medium, which is this nice medium that thins down the consistency, but doesn't really affect the opacity in the same way that water does. The new Dual Neverborn Master on the table. So, okay, sorry, I missed that. Hey, thank you. I missed that question. So the new Nevermore Master, I've just used the fervent version. I've had about maybe 10 games with him, and I love him. He is a force of brute sheer power. And the unpack is a bit tricky because you need to really be careful to ensure that everything moves forward steadily. There's a lot of synergy between the models to move one another forward, and Castor can be moved, well, several inches forward, more than 10 inches easily before his first activation, and he can have two focus on him before he activates. It's not difficult to do. And if you just need Gwyll and Ernbearer in your crew, or Morris after the errata, and then you typically have him tucked in safely behind the barrier that Athora creates, and he is mobile. He goes way up the board. So for me, it's typically turn one. It's not a question whether I commit him to the melee or not. It's rather how I commit him to close combat. How fast and how deep do I want to go? Because if he hits with focus, and if he charges in, then he hits with those blasts, and he can just. It's a very killy master, and the interaction with Blade is amazing. Colorful combos on wings and harpies. Oh yeah, thanks for that. So I've been really enjoying playing him. to the point where I put him on the table regardless of the strategy, really. I mean, I've only, in my last game, like 3 weeks ago, I put Titania 1 on the table because there was a lot of, there were a lot of small forests on the area, on the gaming table, so that just felt like a better choice then. But in general terms, Castor's crew is quite versatile. The interactions with the totem are just amazing. He can summon the totem next to him, cause it to charge, and it's easy for him, fairly easy to dish out like, let's say, 5 damage on severe, 4 with blast, and then use the blade to kill off the models that feel that they are safely tucked in the back line. So you need some kind of tech against him. You need something like extended reach or models that don't allow other models to place next to them, because that can maybe not ruin his day, but make his life much more difficult. And he can kidnap other models. Well, the rest of his crew isn't that killy, but can still dish out solid damage. Even those cover Nephilim, they have the severe of 6, which is quite impressive for us. Well, kind of glorified scheme runner, because they are quite expensive for scheme runners. They cost 9 stones, so that's quite a lot. So you really want to make sure that those points work for you quite well. Now it's time to actually paint all those little gears on the backpack. Some small cogs in the upper section as well. Maybe I'll allow it to dry properly, and I'll just very lightly use pure white on those most raised areas. I mean, not the most protruding ones, the raised ones, but the ones that would potentially be mostly affected by light shining their way. And those elements are so tiny that I'm just using a brush with really fine tip, because otherwise I just wouldn't be able to even touch them with a brush. Oh yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And the nice thing is that, my first thought that could make a good counter for him from Neverborn side would be Zoraida, but not really, because he ignores damage from friendly models. So he doesn't care about Zoraida. He actually enjoys Zoraida obeying his crew to attack him because it essentially just strengthens him. So Zoraida is not the way to go against him. I honestly don't know what I would put against him. Maybe Titania, given that she's a bit more resilient and it's hard to blast severe damage off of her. Hard to tell. Definitely, I would need a way to put stand on him so that he can't play to his full potential. So it feels like I've been painting the non-metallic metal section for more than an hour now. But I'm close to moving to the next stage. Oh yeah, that would be a fun thing. Yeah, Tomek is a very good Rezo player. I faced you twice, and our last game was a very, very competitive game, which ended in a draw. It was Zoraida 1 against Kirai 1. It was a memorable and fun game. And those Goryo that you kept on summoning were just ruining my day. Whenever I felt that I was making some considerable progress, then boom, another Goryo came to put me back. Yeah, I respect the commitment. That's admirable. Green all the way. Now I will use just black to kind of put a bit more definition in between the raised areas and details. But it would be interesting. Not sure if interesting in a good or bad way, but for sure quite the experience to face Castor or to play a mirror match. I'm not sure if it would be all about who hits whom first, who can absorb the initial impact better. Really, really hard to tell. So now I'm just going with darker gray over the lower sections, which would naturally be a little bit darker. Yeah, we will. If it ever happens, then we surely will. My not problem, the challenge that I found with Castor is that he is such a focal point. He dishes out so much damage, and you need another source of damage. One very powerful source of damage is just not enough to win in the game at times. Because I've had games in which I pretty much tabled my opponents, but I still didn't win those games because they were able to outmaneuver me on the flanks. So that's not a guarantee. Even tabling your opponent in Malifaux doesn't necessarily win you games if they're able to complete their objectives better. And I need to shape those holes better. They need to be pure black. Your Arcanist, but I did buy all the Kirai's keyword. Giga but I found the other team. Well, that's a big keyword, and that's a lot of miniatures. A lot of nice looking miniatures, I might add. But that's something that I can say about probably most of the word models. So now it's this continuation of this meticulous work of keeping the elements which should be darker, much darker. The exit of the exhaust pipe is another example. And those thin black separating lines between those fingers on those fists, they will also go a long way towards increasing the three-dimensional aspect. Here I warm up master and M3 and have a blaster on the shelf after GG3. Yeah, well, let's just put GG4 on the table. I mean, Word has hinted that this is something that might be happening this year. So let's see. Because each time new Gaining Grounds is released, it just feels like you learn to play the game all over again. And it's a good experience. I haven't played anything in Gaining Grounds 1. I just missed the beginning of the current edition. But I've played a lot in Gaining Grounds 2, Gaining Grounds 3, and got to admit, I'm looking forward to Gaining Grounds 4. So just black lining those, separating those plates of armor essentially. Oh, for sure. For sure, very colorful keyboard. Right, we are approaching the final hour of the stream, and the non-metallic metal section is pretty much done. I think I'll move to the yellow part now. And for yellow, I have a simple recipe, which consists of using 4 colors, really, on top of what I already have. So 4 colors from new Vallejo. Well, not so new anymore, because it's almost 1 year since its release, I believe. And I'll be just applying them one after another. And I'll start with the darkest shade of yellow, and then gradually move towards brighter and brighter ones. I told you that this, when I saw this outfit, it screamed Kill Bill to me. Not sure if everyone has watched those movies by Tarantino. Then the main character in one of those memorable scenes was wearing this distinctly recognizable yellow tracksuit. I mean, it was like the kind of clothes that you put when you go on motorcycle. That was one of the more ridiculous fighting scenes, but ridiculous in a good way. And I'm just making sure that the raised areas are tackled and the ones that are underneath remain darker. And I don't need to hurry. I can slow down. There is plenty of time left. Just want to make sure that the transitions happen naturally and that the areas which are underneath remain darker with a hint of yellow at least. That's one way of approaching painting the translucent models, and that can bring some nice results. I've done that with Raspi's keyword, and that was something different. I did enjoy that. Now the yellow doesn't have the strongest pigment, which means that you need to go over the same area quite a few times just to make sure that it is properly covered and that the color is solid. Right, that's the darkest shade of yellow. Now moving on to the slightly brighter one. That we have Raspy, but why is the outsourced execution to remember? Yes, I remember painting that. That was fun, especially incorporating some snow flock on the base with those partially translucent miniatures. And that's, one thing that I was concerned about was that the assembly would be a challenge, that there would be gaps that I would not be able to make the connection points as seamless as I want to, but actually it worked quite well, much better than I had expected. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm just making sure that the yellow highlights I place do not cover all the surface that I had covered with yellow previously. That it's just gradual. Yeah. And I'm absolutely not licking the brush. All right, I am. But it's a habit that I don't think I will ever get out of. Guys, you make me. I'm just too shy. No, thank you for the compliments. But there are many good painters. Just even in my local meta, there are a couple of amazing painters, and I always enjoy playing against them. It's just so nice to see lovely painted miniatures squaring off in a game of foe. And that seam, I will keep it black, but that will happen a bit later. Just want to make sure that the pants get some highlights. Not strong, not very distinct, but at least that they are there. Here I want it to be much brighter because I want this vivid color to be the final outcome. Now moving to yet brighter shade of yellow. So this one is considerably brighter, so I need to be a bit more careful with the application. I don't want to overdo it because it's like yellow mixed with white, what I'm doing now. So I'll be just careful to make sure that this is on the folds of the material, only on those raised areas, and it doesn't interfere in the wrong way with the previously laid down highlights. Especially when I go to the bottom section, I don't want it to be too strongly visible there. There needs to be this fine transition. But this is the stage where I really feel that the miniature is kind of coming to life, if I can say so. And I don't want to say that's my favorite part of the process because I pretty much enjoy each part of the process from the assembly stage to varnishing stage. But this is a stage which brings a lot of satisfaction because you see that it's really it's all coming together, starting to come together. You know, it's much easier when you have good paints, and I've been struggling with yellow for quite a while. But when I bought these four paints, those four Vallejo game color paints, it just made everything easier because essentially I just need to thin down the paints slightly and use them gradually from darkest to brightest shade of yellow, and it just happens, you know. It's nothing. I will switch to finer brush. Exceptionally magical about it. It's just the way that those colors and those colors from Vallejo, they just level themselves so well on the miniature. This is the amazing property that they have. It's just that you apply them and they dry in a way that they interweave with the previous layer seamlessly. I've never really experienced that with any other paints, so that's why I use most of the time I use Vallejo paints for highlights. I also use their express paints, which are the equivalent of contrast paints because they are cheaper. They are packaged in dropper bottles versus those tricky cans that GW paints come in. Little bit of highlight here because it needs to be darker, but it needs to be a bit more yellow, the part underneath. All right. I think it's almost there with the yellow. And that's good because there's still 1 hour to go. So 1 hour to that will allow me to follow up on any area that I feel needs a bit more brush work. Like this section here, which is almost impossible to get to, but almost doesn't mean fully impossible. It just means more challenging, but not impossible. Okay, so we have the, let me just pause for a second here. So we have the, I just need a sip of water. Yeah, then go for Vallejo. Those are the best. So we have the armor, we have the yellow, we don't have the hair, we don't have the base, we don't have the browns, the greens. So that's something to do for the next hour or so, or a bit less than an hour. So what I'll do now is I will give, I think, an overbrush on the base and maybe on the hair. So I'll just grab a brush that I use for dry brushing brush, off-white, and off we go. I'm just putting all my heart into this miniature, and I hope that the lucky winner gets to enjoy putting her on the table. So that's an easy way to bring the details on the base to life, but I don't want to overdo it because I still need to get back slightly to it to add a slightly more brownish vibe to the planks on the base. That's my plan, and also I think I will use a little bit of dry pigments on the shoes, but I may actually not. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just use some water effect on the base to make it look as to just add a bit more dynamism. But that will be a bit later. Just an overbrush and also overbrush on the hair, which still needs to be more black than gray, and it's currently more gray than black. And those cables, they need to be more brown, more green. Okie dokie. let's do maybe some work on the hair. So for the hair, I will go with black ink mixed with maybe purple. I will first use maybe a glaze of Nuln oil, maybe 2 glazes, just to bring those hair to slightly darker shade. And then I will glaze over them with purple. This is a really, really lovely miniature. The more I paint it, the more I enjoy working with it. It just has this cartoonish look with a consistent use of non-metallic metal and just over the top bright shades that I normally wouldn't be using. But it is what it is, and I'm feeling quite good about it. Now for the planks, let's tint them. Let's tint them with some green and dark brown, and maybe actually fire or giant orange. That could be fun. Let's be bold with those. Let's make them look unusual. Or maybe even better would be Blackburr Flesh, which is a lighter shade of green that will look like some partially rotten planks. And I'll just go heavy towards the midsection, where I plan to add some still water effect later on. And maybe towards like the middle where they are rotted away, mostly rotten away, right? Just being quite generous with paint application, and then I need to thin it down because it's very strong. But I need to add some more definition to the planks, and orange. Orange is a color that I haven't used on this miniature yet, whereas brown is something that I've used, so that's why the choice of orange. That's my thinking behind it. Just strengthening the shades underneath. All right, it's more like it now, and I'll now mix some green with orange actually, just to make this transition towards greenish part in the middle more pronounced. It's going to look like old worn wood that's seen too much rain and been in too much of a damp climate. Just too much humidity. Might be a bio that she's getting involved with. Who knows? Okay. A bit more time to go. Well, plenty of time to go, but time to do a bit of a stretch. You know, always if while I'm painting on the stream, I don't do it. But if I paint like after hours, after my work day is over, I just make sure to get up and stretch out like at least once per hour. Because otherwise, you just become stiff and it's not pleasant. All right. Now, purple base on the hair, and I will use Carroburg Crimson, I think, now, which is this purple, but it has, no, I think I will actually go with a bit more directly violet. So violet wash from Vallejo Game Color. And I want to just make the hair color a bit more interesting, a bit more saturated than just going with plain white, plain black and some highlights. Just want to add a bit more depth to it, and that's what I hope to achieve with purple. And then I will just highlight individual strands of hair, just very lightly, because it's supposed to be black hair after all. That's what I'm after here. Now the hairband, I was thinking purple, and maybe pink actually would be even better than purple. Why not go with pink? Let me just grab my pink color. Or maybe red? No, pink will be better. Pink will work better. I will use Purple Alchemy, which is this bright shade, more on the pink side than purple. It's going to have immediate impact. Yeah, I think it works quite well. Contrasts nicely with the yellow on the clothes. Okay. Now for the green part, maybe. Actually, I need to bring back some white where it was affected by yellow and other colors. So I will just lightly apply, yeah, well, bright. It's an off-white shade. I'll just apply it along the raised areas. And maybe I can just get some light brown, beastie brown, and do a little bit more work on the planks. Just need to give it a good shake. That should do it. Okay. Now a bit more work on the base, and now I'll be painting along just those lines on the planks, because there's only so far that you can go with pure dry brush. It nicely highlights the very edges, but the midsection just remains the same for the most part. So it's a good idea to just land a few well-placed brush strokes there, just to get this differentiation, because otherwise it's just super bright on the edges and the same in the middle, But if you just land a few brush strokes here and there, not necessarily on each single bit, on each single line that you have along those planks, but some of them, then it becomes, as I like to say, more three-dimensional. I'm quite happy with the kind of cartoonish effect. Yes, that was indeed, it was a vortex shaker. I don't know if I can, my cable is too short. Can I unplug it? I can unplug it. So that's how it looks. This is used for essentially for nail polish, but I bought it on some kind of, I think on eBay, or it wasn't very expensive, like $10. You just place a paint and it shakes. Great stuff for making sure that the pigment gets evenly distributed with the mixing medium inside of the container. Now for this hairband, I just want to use a bit more pink, so I'm just mixing white with the base coat and making sure there is a highlight here, and from another side as well, because otherwise it just looks dull. And now some more. It's similar technique to non-metallic metal, where I just draw some highlights towards the front of the hair. Not all the way. Because again, there is so much you can do with dry brush, but if you want to get a more refined look, then you just need to step it up a little bit and apply very delicate brush strokes to bring up the mid front section of the hair. I know it can sound a bit confusing, but don't really know how to refer to it. But yeah, for nail polish, I mean that's the original use, but I don't think that there's any company that creates such devices specifically for miniature painting. But you know, I've never had any nail work done, so can't really confirm this is actually used by professional beauticians. But yeah, well, I guess they use it. Seems like it makes sense because nail polishes generally has much thicker consistency, so it stands to reason that it needs a separate device for prolonged use, because otherwise it could just dry off too fast. So the hair will be almost done very soon. Just adding a few more highlights. Yeah, no shame, you know. And actually, I learned about the use of such, it's called vortex shaker. I learned it from my fellow word painter, Doug, also known as Goose Ladder, because I was just concerned that there's some kind of weird noise during his stream. He explained the use, and I bought mine and haven't looked back since. Been using it consistently. All right, now there is still some those brown belts. I'm not quite happy with where I am with them, so I will need some more brown on them. I'll use these two, Gorgon brown and Grunge brown. So again, vortex shaking. Sounds like a little engine. I'm sure my neighbors love this sound. But I actually live in a pretty old block of flats. So the roofs or floors, the ceilings or the floors, depending which perspective you take, are pretty thick. So shouldn't be a problem. Oh, come on. GW would sell it for $100 and well, but good thing they don't. You can definitely get a cheaper one. And there, I don't really see any value in investing heavily into that. Something that I use for a few minutes every other day. So it serves its purpose, even if it's not the highest quality. So I don't want just to have this base color, base brown on the leather straps. So I'm going with like a slightly reddish brown, which will be picked up with grunge brown. That's the next highlight. And then maybe some white on the very edges. Yeah, that's better not. They already have too many ideas anyway. Okay, 40 minutes left, which I guess is it will have to be enough. I will make it enough. I mean, I don't plan to speed it up. I mean, for the most part, I'm able to paint one miniature fully during each stream. I've had streams during which I painted two miniatures. If I, for some reason, happened to be working on two models that were identical at a given time, for example, one for me and one for another person. But the most I did, I think, was 5 miniatures in one stream, painted, well, more or less simultaneously. Those were some Nephilim, Pterodots, and Shaman. So not not huge miniatures, but still, I was sweating to finish them in those 3 hours. So now the final highlight is focused more towards the very edges. It's like edge highlighting now. So using the side of the brush for the most part. I think that if I chose to paint this miniature with standard metallics, I would already be done with it and probably painting some returned model. So glad I took the more challenging path. I mean, you can get challenging path with standard metallics, with true metallics as well. But for me, it's not just my standard approach. Oh yeah, that was a busy stream. I was using oil paints then as well, just to put some oil washes and just employ all the techniques for facilitating the speed and maintaining the quality. Right now, those Cables. This will be slightly longer part, I think. I mean, I'm not in a hurry, so I will start with, again, give a good shake. And once again, my approach is to first apply a very bright color, because then I'm able to tweak it towards darker or brighter shade, depending on what I have in mind. And this is the part that I wouldn't feel comfortable approaching with brush at an earlier stage, given that it could be a bit problematic, because I could easily put some other colors on those. And you know what? I may actually be done with this miniature in a few minutes, but I still need to paint those swamp-like effects on the base. So that's another thing. And you know, while I do it, I might already add it on some of the miniatures that I have on my desk, just to get the most out of this stream and show you how I use it to kind of enhance certain aspects of the colors that I have. Oh, you know, I just find it absolutely fascinating to experiment with different tools. I spend hours watching YouTubers who are highly proficient with different tools of the trade and just learn from them. That's a great thing about the internet, that if you look for something specific to learn more about, then you're likely to find something satisfying and beneficial. And then I buy the products and test them and add them to my painting desk and start using them regularly. And oil paints can be a bit intimidating initially, but really they just help out a lot. So what's happening here is that we have this super bright green, which in itself is pretty cool, but I want some more depth to it. I want more contrast. It's just not good enough. One, because I have so many contrasting elements, but it just looks kind of bland and flat. I mean, it looks good. Don't get me wrong, it looks good. I'm not unhappy with it, but I can be happier. So I can mix the base color with warp lightning, which is a much darker shade of green, and start applying it in the recessed areas. I'm doing it even now when the paint hasn't dried completely. So I'm doing a kind of wet blending. And the paints will just naturally kind of level themselves, and that will allow me for fairly smooth transitions between darker shades of green towards brighter ones. Now I'm getting very close to her pants, which are yellow, and I don't want them to be accidentally green. So need to be very careful around that. Oh yes, this one is contrast paint, it's warp lightning. And the one that I had used previously, it's Intensity from scale 75. I have only one from this range. It's this super bright contrast-like paint, which isn't that heavy. I guess I wanted to start with something rather light before I go with the dark ones. And now I think I'll still get a bit more darker color. Some almost black. Not purely black, but really heavy green. And use it just for those most tangled up recessed areas. And she's almost ready to color her down. I will still use some edge highlighting, but I will use maybe a small dry brush for that, just to make sure that those edges of those planks are distinctly defined. And she's almost ready, but we still have time. Muchas gracias, Señor Diablo. Glad you like what you see. So this is where we're at with her. Maybe I will just use part of my miniature holder just to keep it more in the focus, in the center. Let me just find the right place. Okay, maybe not perfect, but a bit better. Let's get some good focus on her. All right, we have some focus. There she is. Not fully done. There are still a few things I can do. But what I achieved is this heavily saturated look with cartoonish like highlights, which is a kind of departure from my standard approach to painting. But I'm not calling it done yet. I still have 25 minutes, so I'm around 20 minutes, plenty of time. What I'll do now is I will just add this water effect. So let me grab one empty base, which I will use as my mixing pot. I need my still water effect, which is behind my screen, and there it is. So what I'll do is I will first of all apply it slowly, because otherwise too many bubbles are created, and I will mix it with green, with light green. Where is my light green? that's the mixing sound. It's from Speed Paint. And I will actually use it also on my returned models, because while I have it on the table, I might as well take advantage and just use it on some of my own stuff. But what I'm doing now is I'm mixing this product, so Vallejo still water, and using an old brush which can absorb a lot of paint. And I'm just going quite heavy towards the center to make it look like it's partially flooded. There goes the work on those blanks. All those highlights were pointless. Nah, not really. It's just they were there as a setup. Okay, so that's one color. And while I have it, oh yeah, it's an amazing color. Thank you, Tomek. Glad you worked. Glad you were able to come back here. Yeah, and gibbering hordes makes a lot of sense for them. And I will just apply it on my miniatures as well. So this cover, and this is also a good opportunity to show you guys what you can get in the Wood GenCon sale. And if we could have maybe the link once again, just to make sure that it's there for people who have just joined, who maybe are not aware that GenCon is happening, because it's the biggest con connected with borrowed miniature games that happens once a year. And what I do is I go quite heavy on the miniature with it now. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a bit blurry. Not sure why it's the case. Maybe I'll just change my camera to slightly lower. All right, there is the focus. And I'm just applying it quite heavily. That's the brightest shade. I will go with some, at least two darker shades after that one is done. Then this other cover Nephilim. Let me get a good view, a good setup on this. This is the hanging one. This is the idea that was given to me by my good colleague with whom I regularly paint. He's with whom I regularly play. He's a very good player, but also an excellent painter. And he said, I think I might get Castor's box just to paint this cover Nephilim hanging upside down. And I said, I might just steal your idea. And he said, fine. So I stole his idea. So I'm not going to pretend I came up with it, but I created those rocks from which he's hanging. And he's still not fully painted. I still need to put some highlights on the skin to make it look a bit more pale than it currently is. Not too much. Then we have the lovely Athorak, which all the shooting crews hate because he can block line of sight, which is super annoying. I had a game against Cooper one, and for 2 or 3 turns, Cooper did just walk, concentrate. Then when he got focus +2, he was no longer able to do concentrate, so he was just walking, because he couldn't fire a single shot, thanks to this guy. And one blood vessel. And I'm again mixing it heavily with Vallejo steel water effect, because in a moment I will change it slightly to darker swampy color, because now I have this bright swamp-like effect. It's particularly well visible here in the center of the base, where it has the best miniatures. Let's just hand it to them. They absolutely knock it out of the park. Knock the ball out of the park with the creativity, design, story. It's just, let's just end the discussion here. It's the best miniature company, and let's face it, that's why I'm here. That's why those who join the painting stream are here, because we know what we're getting, the quality. from amazing product. Now I'm going to mix orc skin, which is just a bit darker. I mean, it's much darker, but I won't be applying it as heavily. This time I will go lightly and try to really focus on only smaller area. Just make it look like it's like muddy water. So not going all the way, just dabbing essentially with it just to leave some traces of darker green. And I will still add one more shade, which will be a fun color. I will share with you my full swamp recipe. And that's true as well. Like the community is it's amazing. You know, if you want to check the quality of the community, just ask a random question that matters to you, and we'll go to the word place, ask a question, and you will have several answers in a matter of minutes. Very, very rarely, of course, there are some people who are just mean, and but there are moderators who edit that, but those are very, very rare cases. So I'm now adding this slightly darker shade of green, just seemingly random dabs of different shade of green. And now the final thing is that now it got darker with this darker shade, and now is the special color that I will be using, which is a bit ridiculous because it's called, let me show you, Bob Ross. a bit less her. And did you know that Bob Ross used to be in the military? Can you imagine him as a marine or whatever he was? But he was in the military for some part. But that's I take it as a compliment. Bob Ross was a great guy. Now, this is my secret sauce. Can you see the name? The secret sauce is called Vomitol or Vomit, which is a special color because it's really looks like vomit. So it goes well with this muddy, swampy effect that I have in mind. And what I do again, take an old brush. Look at this brush. This is just an awful brush, not usable for really any serious painting, but good for spreading the vomit, right? So there goes the vomit. I mix it a little bit with brown and again apply it so that it kind of blends with the other colors that I have, but it adds some slightly brighter splashes. So it looks like she's fighting through her way through the lake of vomit. But you can see already that there is this change of color. It's not just one shade of green. Those are a few shades of green mixed together that look like something that's absolutely random. And I'm doing the same thing on my cover Nephilim. You know, just taking advantage of the fact that I have the mixture ready and I won't need to do it separately. And we still have like 15 minutes to go. Yeah, this calls for my vomit brush, my special vomit brush. That's fun. You know, it's all about sharing my secret sauces with you guys, and I'm more than happy. I mean, I have learned so much thanks to other painters sharing their knowledge openly on the internet, and this is all about, you know, sharing. Sharing is caring. Now, maybe Athorak will get some vomit. You see, it just becomes more interesting if you add vomit to it. And the blood vessel, who is a surprisingly good scheme runner. I've had some success with him. And in my next stream, I will show you guys how to paint this effect of this worn, of this really badly damaged tunic that has a hint of gray, hint of green to it, hint of brown, but looks like a material that's seen ages of not washing. So that's a bit of a spoiler for my next stream, which will feature Castora, the Awakened. So the pre-workout version of new Neverborn Master. So you know the final thing that really remains to be done is to paint the rim of the base black. And for that I don't have my vomit brush. I just use dark matte black, because it's like essentially dark black is like this solid frame to the bottom of the miniature, and I'll just remove part of the handle to keep it closer to the camera, and I just go heavy. I make sure that I do it, and well, I will do one more thing, but I will do it off screen probably tomorrow. I will explain in a second. Maybe I will add a hint of brown to this toxic pool that she's standing over. And remember, this miniature is not for any commissioner for my own collection. It's not for Word. It's for a lucky winner who will be chosen. And I think it's on the 8th of August that the lucky winner will be announced. So fingers crossed for all of you who took part and are eligible for being chosen. Now I will just use Fire Slayer Flash, or maybe not. I will use some brown shade. Not this brown. I can use Snakebite Leather. And again, use my vomit brush. And you know what I'll do is I'll just add a light touch of brown to the whole thing, just to make it even more disgusting. See that those, I will just showcase this to you in a second, but before I do that, I mean, I need not hurry. We still have a few minutes to go. And again, just lightly dabbing my brush in seemingly random places on those green pools. And one thing to be cautious about is not to overdo it. You don't want the still water effect to flow over the rim of the base, because that will just leave a lot of mess. So one thing, the still water effect has nice property that when it's dries, it leaves this gloss finish, which is perfect for such pools, right? Or or vomit. But you don't want it. You want it to be glossy. I mean, you want it to be glossy, but since I have added other paints and mixed it with still water, it will lose this property. So in order to bring back the gloss, bring back the gloss to the vomit, bring back the shine to the vomit, what I will do is once this has completely dried, so likely tomorrow, I will just apply only the still water effect, so only this one, on the area which is filled with this brown and darker shade. Let me just touch it up a little bit with darker shade. So I will only add the still water effect to those parts of this toxic pool, or however you call it. Of course, let everyone know. You know, sharing is caring again. So please make sure to follow the links that Kim has kindly shared. So share the following item with the tag WeirdMiss 2023 for a chance to win this very miniature. And there is also my link to my Instagram account. And for some reason, the lighting isn't optimal now, but I'm pretty happy with the result. I mean, it's not my typical approach to painting, but it's been fun. It's been an experience, and I promise to write a quick small note on the bottom of the base to the lucky winner and congratulate them. And this will be sent directly to Word, and Word will send it further to the lucky winner who gets to be chosen to win to receive this miniature. So this has been the process of painting Misconduct, the latest model for Word Miss Minis. If you want to get her, if you want to make sure you have her, then visit Word Store, buy miniatures for at least $100, and you will receive her for free with your order, but you need to make it at least $100. Thank you so much. Oh yes, they are there. And this has been pure fun. I mean, I really enjoyed the process. Thank you guys for everyone who joined and interacted in the chat. And yeah, follow the link. Follow the link. Place your order, and then you will get this miniature. She's a lovely lady. So that's it. There's one more stream coming up, and make sure not to miss it. Just follow Word social media. And until next time, where I'll be painting Castor Awakened. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Good rest of the day. Good night to everyone. Keep on happy painting. Take care. Bye.